happening? What's shaking? What's going on? This is Andy coming to you again from here at Andy's World of Bass. Thought I'd do a little lesson video for you today. Give you a few suggestions that hopefully some of you might find useful. And what I want to talk about in terms of topic is just some of the tools in my own tool chest that I draw from, that I use every time I play. These are some of the most important tools in my own personal tool chest. First of all, when it comes to playing a bass line that I think is ideal for the song, both with groove and also being supportive and helping to sell the harmony, whether it be a major or minor chord, is understanding and being able to utilize and access the triads. Because as the chord progression is going along, some of the chords are going to be major, 2 chord, is going to be minor. So I can kind of season the bass line, sprinkle in some of those thirds in there, and that helps really deliberately sell the harmony. So I'm able to get it done with just being able to know and be able to access the triads in every key, diatonic triads in every key. For every note of the scale, there's a correlating triad. Getting that stuff going is going to be one of the most important tools that any bass player will ever need and draw from, because the majority of popular music that's ever been written or ever will be written is you're going to be able to navigate your way through it in a tasteful way by knowing that. The other thing is the 1-5-8, that Chuck Rainey swears by. Let's say we're in the key G. 1 to the 5th to the octave. That can be played in infinite varieties of ways. So that 1-5-8 kind of rolling thing. 1-5-8, 8-5-1, or 1-5-8-5. Anything that just uses that 1, 5, and the 8 is going to usually be your friend, simply because it works over almost every chord. If it doesn't, unless it has a flat 5 in it, which is a little bit more, considerably more rare, then you can utilize that, create motion, and create what sounds like a really cool, slinky, sexy bass line that isn't overly harmonically stacked. It's just 5th and root and 5th, but in that context, you're leaning more on feel and groove, and the motion of the line it's moving up and down the staff. If you were to look at it on paper, you're getting from point A to point B in a groovy, melodic sounding way, but it's not overly stacked with thirds and sevenths, so it's not. It's more universal. Okay, so that 1-5-8 thing is huge. Triads are huge. Approaching every new chord, our approaches. So let's say the bass line is going from G to C to D. You can just stab them or land on them. Land right on top of everyone. Put those little approaches, like from a half step below or a whole step below. Or from a half step above going the other way, or a whole step or a half step. And if you incorporate that minor third, it gives it starts to get into that soulful, dominant bluesy. Anytime you see a G7, C7, D7, A7. Six, dominant 7-6. That move right there is the other one that I'll do a lot of times, which is kind of this begging and borrowing from one tonality and the other. It's like you can utilize, you can kind of slip out of major into minor, or slip out of minor into major by like playing through the minor third to the major third to the one, and that's all that Gershwin. And then if you want to get George Porter, you know, that New Orleans thing. That kind of stuff all the time, which is kind of half major, half minor sounding. Dominant 7. Repetition. Turns, I call them turns. Ba-da, 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 ba. And you swing it and make it bounce. Sta-da, ba-da, ba-da, ba-dum. Boom, boom. Going from straight to swing, swinging the licks and keeping the line straight. Another thing I do all the time. Approaching, coming down under. You know, coming down to this, like, if you're in G. Down to the 6, that's the 6. But coming under to the 6th. Or you can do it, let's say you're in D. That time I'm coming under to the major, to the major third, F sharp. So another thing that I will do is I'll create sequence. outside, play inside outside. So I'll play a neighboring tonality. You know, that sounds like it might be a wrong note, but it's not wrong. It's a half step below. As long as you resolve your half step from a half step below, as long as you resolve it, it works. So when you have your in, this is in the key, right? As soon as you go, so all that neighboring stuff, all that half step neighboring stuff is totally happening. You could do it with diminished scales too, or neighboring diminished scales. It wants to go right back to D. That's a D flat diminished scale. It wants to go right home, right back to D. And you can do it above a half step too. Puts you right back in D. You know, whole tone scales are cool for that too, from a half step below. That's that scale that don't know what it is. You know, it's ambiguous, androgynous scale. It's not distinctly major or minor. It's like floaty and airy and cascading. That one's a little trickier to incorporate. You know, you got to be kind of doing some fusiony, jazzy kind of, you know, soul jazz or whatever to make that thing land nicely. In rock and stuff, it just sounds awkward. But anyways, what are some of my other ones? Triplet down to the minor third. So the minor third in D is going to be F natural. F natural. That's selling D minor big time. Big of the bow, ball, minor third. And that brings you right back. It wants to go right back to D. The other thing that I try to do is play. I have to make a conscious effort. Is that when I do a bass run or lick or riff or whatever, some sort of embellishment, I try to do, you know, 3 out of 4 by going lower. 2, 3. I did 4 embellishments. The first 3 all went low, and only one of them went high. That prevents your bass lines from sounding like you know what I mean? Like it's like going up high and doing some noodles up high and then going back down. It starts to it's very jive, you know. So if you just make a conscious effort to make most of your moves and most of your riffs getting down into the subs and getting lower, saying what you're going to say by getting lower, then when you do go, when you do one that goes up onto the higher strings, it says something. It says more, and it packs more of a punch. To slapping, I try not to overcommit to slapping. And I try to be, I think that when it comes to plucking, thumping and plucking or slapping, whatever you want to call it, the slow hand approach, I think Eric Clapton, you know. Playing longer, slower notes and bending them when you're plucking and thumping and plucking. And not staying in that, you know, just kind of sprinkling it in there. I think it's more tasteful. The thing that gets slap bass a bad rap is when we overcommit to it and get in and stay in too long with it. If you just sprinkle it in there tastefully, don't bother anybody. Every once in a while you can throw in one with a bunch of subdivisions. Throwing that stuff in there every once in a while, sprinkling it in there is super hip, you know, it's super tasteful. But if we just go, I stayed about four times too long with the double thumbing triplets. If I would have just went, you know, if I just did it a little bit, it has much more of a tasteful appeal, in my opinion. So there's a few of the things that I think about. You know, it all comes down to having a bunch of individualized licks and chops, but knowing where and when and how to sprinkle them in tasteful ways, in tasteful places, you know, where they're not going to interfere with something that's more important at the time, like vocals or an instrument that's being featured at that particular time in the song. You know, I think that the best place for a fill is the places that the drummer plays a fill, leading from the verse to the chorus, or the chorus to the verse, or the chorus to the bridge. Typically in the bridge you can get a little bit more harmonically tasteful and maybe get involved with selling the harmony more and do some sort of sequence thing that's sort of arpeggiate, more along the lines of arpeggiation. That's a good place to do it in the bridge. And then the outro of the song, the trail out, you know, where it's just kind of the song is over and it's just kind of like vamping, sort of maybe fading out, or it's kind of like a refrain, a chorus that's repeating again and again and again. In between the vocal phrases, you can do complementary bass runs and things. outro. The song is a good place to get a little, traditionally and historically, it's a great place to get busier on the band.